I know, I'm doing a ton of transfer portal content right now, and that's for two reasons. One, I genuinely love doing it, as it's probably my second favorite thing to cover on the channel, and two, you guys really enjoy it, as most of these videos do really well. So yeah, today, I've come up with 25 quarterbacks who in my opinion should enter the 2026 transfer portal, and that is a lot of names and a lot of information, so we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about 25 quarterbacks who should enter the 2026 transfer portal. Alright, so our first guy is a quarterback by the name of Tyler Cherry. He ended up going to Center Grove High School in Indiana, and at 6'5", he was the number 14 quarterback in the class of 2024 and a 4-star recruit. Cherry went to the same high school that Taven Jackson did, the former IU, Tennessee, and UCF quarterback, and while he was there, Cherry was really solid, throwing for 3,200 yards and 34 touchdowns as a senior. After originally committing to Duke, he would flip to Indiana under Tom Allen, and he's also been at Indiana during the Coach Cignetti era. Cherry would end up redshirting his first year in Bloomington in 2024, and this year, he ended up having an injury. This has kept him out for the entirety of the season, and some wonder if he's going to play college football again. But I know Tyler Cherry is a fighter, and I know he probably wants to be loyal to IU, but he should transfer to another school and get an opportunity to play football. Granted, it would probably be at the Group of 5 level. Let's hope the injury isn't too bad, but he's our first guy who I think should enter the portal because he was a huge recruit in the class of 2024. Going across the country in the Big Ten, let's talk about Oregon Ducks quarterback Luke Moga. He's definitely a super interesting player, as just like Cherry, he was a part of the class of 2024, and he was ranked as the number 33 quarterback and the 516th best player in the nation. Unlike some of these other guys, Moga was only a 3-star recruit, but he had great numbers while he was in high school. He ended up throwing for just under 2,000 yards and 23 touchdowns, while rushing for nearly 700 yards and 12 scores. That athleticism alone is why Oregon really wanted him, and he is now in his second season at Oregon, and he's completed 3 of 5 passes, and has also ran the ball 3 times for 49 yards. No offense, but I just don't think Luke Moga is ever going to play at Oregon, as they're probably going to bring in a transfer this year, and then if not, they'll have Austin Novosad, Akili Smith Jr., and incoming freshman Bryson Beaver. Moga is too athletic and too good of a player to waste his time, so I think he'll end up going down to the Group of 5 level and should look to go to a Mountain West type school. Our third guy on the list is another quarterback who is a 3-star, and his name is Jackson Smolik. He ended up going to Dowling Catholic High School in Iowa and was listed as the number 36 quarterback in the country. He was ranked number 733rd in the nation, and he was a bit undersized at 6'2", but Smolik was really good while he was in high school, throwing for 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns during his senior season. Smolik was a bit of a late riser, and so far in his 3 years at Penn State, he's played very sparingly. He has 4 carries for 3 yards, and it just doesn't seem Penn State is quite the place for him to play. I'm sure he has plenty of talent, so I see no reason why he shouldn't enter the transfer portal, especially now that James Franklin is gone. Maybe Smolik will look to go to a school back in Iowa, and a place like Northern Iowa would make a lot of sense to me. But who knows? For our fourth guy, we have a tragic story, and that is Sam Horn. As a Mizzou fan, I still remember the day that Sam Horn committed to the Tigers, as coming out of Collins Hill High School in Georgia, he was considered one of the top quarterback prospects in the class of 2022. In fact, he was ranked as the number 8 quarterback in the nation, and Sam Horn had great numbers while he was in high school. He had nearly 8,000 yards and 78 touchdowns during his time there, and arrived at Mizzou as one of the most hyped up recruits ever, with guys like Blaine Gabbert and Drew Lock. Unfortunately, Horn played very sparingly, as he barely got on the field in 2022, played a little bit in 2023, was out the entire 2024 season, and then on the first play of his 2025 season, he got hurt and is out for the year. Horn is a big-time baseball prospect, so I would not be surprised to see him just go the professional baseball route, but if he does want one more crack at football, he needs to probably transfer and go down a level. I don't know, maybe a school like Georgia State, Kennesaw, or Georgia Southern will take a guy like him who is a former blue chip. Our fifth guy is none other than big-time quarterback LaNorris Sellers. Coming from South Florence High School, LaNorris was a late riser in the class of 2023, as after originally committing to both Syracuse and Virginia Tech, Sellers would get a late offer from South Carolina and would decide to commit to the Gamecocks. He was really solid while he was in high school, as he threw for 3,000 yards and 45 touchdowns, and had 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns just during his senior season alone. Sellers would arrive as the backup at South Carolina, and had a couple of great passes in 2023, but would then take over as the starter in 2024. He threw for 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns, while also having nearly 700 yards and 7 scores on the ground. He had some iconic moments, like his game-winning play against Clemson, but so far this year, Sellers hasn't lived up to the hype. He only has 1,800 yards with 9 touchdowns and 6 picks. The offense hasn't been great, he's battled injuries, they're losing a lot of games, and after once being considered a top 10 pick, Sellers may not get drafted. I think he also needs a change of scenery and a system and more weapons, so I think Sellers should enter the portal and be one of the top guys to go somewhere else. Up next, we need to talk about LSU quarterback Colin Hurley. Coming out of Trinity Christian Academy, Hurley was considered the number 25 quarterback in the class of 2024 and a 4-star player. He was really solid while he was there, as he had over 5,000 yards in his career. I could be wrong, but I also believe he reclassified for LSU, but so far, Hurley has not been able to play. He had a difficult situation happen to him a couple years ago, and now he's decided to take a leave from the team. I'm not quite sure what is going on, but LSU has one scholarship quarterback. I don't think Hurley is the future of LSU's program, especially with a new coaching staff coming in, so I think he should enter the portal and find a home at a good Group of 5 school in Florida. There are plenty of them. It's hard to believe it, but at one point, Brock Glenn was considered the number 1 quarterback in his high school class and was committed to Ohio State. Glenn would end up finishing as a 4-star, and coming out of Tennessee, he would decide to commit to Florida State when it was all said and done. He ended up throwing for nearly 4,000 yards and 57 touchdowns during his career, and despite the good numbers, people weren't all that high on him. Except, Glenn would have to play immediately, as after Jordan Travis got hurt, he would fill in 2023. He was also a bit of a backup in 2024, so when DJ struggled he got to play, and this year he's the 3rd string behind Kevin Sperry, so in 3 years, Glenn has about 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns and 7 picks. He's obviously not the future of Florida State, and if he wants to play and start, he's going to have to go down a level and transfer, which is exactly what I think he's going to do. One of the more unexpected players who I think will hit the portal this year is Pitt quarterback Eli Holstein. After his older brother ended up playing at Louisiana Tech, Eli was going to be an even bigger deal, as he became the number 12 quarterback in the class of 2023. Holstein originally decided to commit to Alabama, and while at Zachary High School, he passed for over 7,000 yards and 62 touchdowns. After playing very sparingly his first year at Alabama, Holstein would transfer to Pitt ahead of the 2024 season. After originally being the backup, he would take over for the rest of the 2024 season, proving he was a high-quality starting quarterback. He threw for about 2,300 yards and 17 touchdowns, and also was a decent dual threat. Unfortunately, he battled a bit of an injury, and in 2025, after struggling to start the season, he was passed up by true freshman Mason Heitschel. Holstein only threw for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns this year so far, and I think Pitt is definitely going to move in the direction of Heitschel, so Holstein should enter the portal. I think he's good enough to go to a low-tier Power 4 school, or if not, definitely the Group of 5. We now get to talk about another blue-chip quarterback who has not done much, and that is Trey Owens from Texas. He ended up coming out of the city of Cypress, Texas, and was the number 21 quarterback in the class of 2024. Owens was a pretty good player, as he threw for over 6,400 yards and 81 touchdowns during his high school career. Owens got his big Texas offer and would decide to commit to the Longhorns and became their guy in 2024. Owens ended up completing 2 of 4 passes for 19 yards and has not seen the field in 2025. It looks like he is 3rd string right now, and they also have KJ Lacey, and they're bringing in 5-star quarterback Dia Bell. Arch Manning is also likely coming back, so there's going to be a logjam of quarterbacks at Texas, and Trey Owens needs to get out of there. He was too highly regarded and highly decorated coming out of high school, and I think he could definitely go to another Power 4 program, or if not, one of the many Group of 5 Texas schools that would be happy to have him. Look, this is no slight at Mississippi State, but it's going to be really impossible and really hard to win there and see a lot of success. The SEC is extremely difficult, and that's why I think Kamario Taylor is going to have to make a decision, and I think he should enter the transfer portal. The 6'4" quarterback came out of the state of Mississippi and blew up into a top 100 recruit and was actually listed as the number 8 overall quarterback. This was a huge get for Jeff Lebby in Mississippi State, and he had over 2,400 yards and 30 touchdowns his senior year, while also rushing for 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. Taylor was so good that he beat out transfer quarterback Luke Kromenhoek for the backup, and he's actually played a bit this year. Taylor has thrown for 210 yards and 4 touchdowns, and has also rushed for 200 yards and 5 touchdowns. Despite this, Mississippi State is one of the worst teams in the SEC, and while I think Mississippi State should go all in on him next year, I think he should go transfer to a bigger school where his talent will be better used. I don't want to see his talent get wasted. One guy who I've mentioned many times on the channel is Alabama quarterback Austin Mack. He was the number 8 quarterback in the class of 2023, and he came out of Folsom High School in California. At 6'6", he was sort of a freak of nature and somebody that was going to get a lot of attention in recruiting, and after throwing for 3,500 yards and 40 touchdowns, he caught the attention of Kalen DeBoer in Washington. He would decide to reclassify and head up to Seattle, but after not playing at all, he would then follow DeBoer to Alabama in 2024, and so far in 2 years as a backup, he has 119 yards and 3 touchdowns. While that's cool and all, I don't think he really has much of a chance. Bama already has former 5-star Keelan Russell lined up, they might go after a transfer, and then they have Jet Tamala coming in. I'm worried if Austin Mack doesn't leave now, he's never going to get a chance to start in college football, and I think he's way too talented for this. Maybe he'll be able to beat out Keelan Russell, but I'm not so sure about that. For our next player, we need to talk about Marcos Davila. Davila came out of Midland, Texas, and was listed as the number 20 quarterback in the class of 2024. He was someone who put up huge numbers while he was in high school, as he threw for 3,000 yards and 36 touchdowns as a junior, and then had 3,300 yards and 30 touchdowns as a senior. This guy had nearly 10,000 passing yards and would decide to commit to Purdue. Unfortunately, I think he made the wrong decision there, as Davila never got a chance to suit up for the Boilermakers, and after the season was over, would transfer to Nebraska. Many thought he'd be the backup to Dylan Raiola, but true freshman TJ Lateef passed him up, and once Dylan got hurt, they decided to roll with him. I don't really see much of a future for Marcos at Nebraska anymore, and he was someone I was super pumped to see at Purdue when he committed there, but as of now, he has not registered a stat in 2 years, and he might need to transfer down a level. I've already talked about this guy a bit on the channel, but Colton Joseph is my favorite Group of 5 quarterback this year, and someone I think needs to go to a higher level. Coming out of Newport Harbor High School in California, Colton Joseph was super underrated. He was listed as the number 103 quarterback in the class of 2023, and that was despite having good numbers in high school. He ended up throwing for 4,100 yards and 41 touchdowns as a senior, but for some unknown reason, schools didn't really come calling. Colton would take over as the starter in part of 2024, throwing for 1,600 yards and 11 touchdowns, and in 2025, he's been magnificent. He already has 2,400 yards passing and 20 touchdowns, and also has 700 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. He has over 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns right now, and those kind of numbers are going to translate to him being a big player in the portal. He's also super mobile, and he reminds me a lot of Diego Pavia, and I definitely see him going to the Power 4 level here soon. Up next, we have another guy who has not played much football yet, but could be a hot commodity in the transfer portal, and that is Brady Hart. He ended up going to Cocoa High School in Florida and was a 4-star recruit from the class of 2025. He actually originally committed to the Michigan Wolverines, but would reopen his recruitment. He ended up throwing for 3,600 yards and 36 touchdowns as a senior, and because of that, he was considered a 4-star recruit. As I said, he ended up at Texas A&M, where he has not seen the field yet. I think Marcel Reed will return for next season, O'Neal will also be back, and they bring in another highly touted freshman. Not saying Brady Hart will never play there, but he's a guy who should get ahead of the curve and transfer to another Power 4 school while he still has some stock. Every year there's an FCS player who absolutely blows up, whether it was Cam Ward or Zach Calzada last year. This year it might be Teron Dickens. Coming out of Northwestern High School in Florida, that is a pretty renowned high school, but he was listed as the number 126 quarterback in the nation and was not even inside the top 2,000 recruits. Dickens ended up throwing for 2,200 yards and 22 touchdowns as a senior, but would arrive at Western Carolina. So far, he has played 3 seasons for them, and he's had an insane 2025 season. He has already thrown for 3,200 yards, has completed 75% of his passes, and has 35 touchdowns compared to just 2 picks. Dickens is literally the best quarterback in the FCS this season by some measures, and despite him being undersized, he is definitely going to go up to the FBS, and I think there's even a chance he could go to a Power 4 school. I know someone in a YouTube comment said Alabama was talking to him, but I'm not sure if that's actually true or not. For our next guy, we're going to talk about Lincoln Kienholz, and I have talked about him on the channel so much, it's actually insane. Kienholz is arguably the biggest player to come out of South Dakota in a long time, as he was listed as the number 11 quarterback in the class of 2023. Kienholz went to TF Riggs High School and would put up insane numbers while he was in high school. This guy did pretty much everything for them, as he had 3,400 yards and 46 touchdowns as a senior, and after originally committing to Washington, he would flip to Ohio State. Kienholz has not gotten a chance to play much, as most of his action came against Mizzou in the Cotton Bowl, and so far this year, he has a touchdown as a backup. I don't see much of a future for him there, as Julian Sayin will be back, and Tavian St. Clair is already below him, so I think he needs to transfer. A school like South Dakota State would make sense, but he is definitely good enough to go to another Power 4 program. For our next guy, we're going to talk about another former blue chip recruit, and that is quarterback Jabari Johnson. He was listed as a 4-star recruit, the number 25 quarterback in the nation, and he came out of Lincoln High School in Washington. Jabari Johnson had passed for over 2,000 yards and 24 touchdowns as a senior, and also ran for 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns. Because of this, he decided to commit to the Missouri Tigers, where he would not play at all during the 2023 season. He would then transfer to Oregon State ahead of 2024, and so far in 2 years, he's gotten a bit of opportunity to play, throwing for 677 yards with 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. To be fair, most people would not be successful at Oregon State right now, but I think Jabari is talented enough and athletic enough to be a starting quarterback in college football. I just think he'll have to go down one level further, aka he needs to hit the portal. For our next player, we have another dude who I've talked about a ton on the channel, and that is Kenny Minchey from Notre Dame. Coming out of high school, Minchey was a 4-star recruit, and while at John Paul II High School, he finished with over 5,000 yards and 53 total touchdowns. Because of this, he was a 4-star recruit and was considered the number 14 quarterback in the nation. After originally committing to Pitt, he became Notre Dame's 2023 guy, and so far in 3 years as a backup, he's done very little. He's passed for 146 yards and has 1 rushing touchdown. He was battling it out with CJ Carr for the starting job, but he ended up losing it. I think Minchey definitely needs to go on to another school if he wants to play, as Notre Dame will continue to roll with CJ Carr, and they're bringing in plenty of talent behind him. I think Minchey is also too athletic and too talented to waste his entire career as a backup, and I'm sure he can go to another Power 4 program, maybe even locally like Vanderbilt. For our next player, we have to talk about the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2024, and that is DJ Lagway. Coming out of Willis, Texas, Lagway was the number 1 player in the nation after he had an insane senior season. I mean, insane is putting it lightly. He had over 4,600 yards and 58 touchdowns as a senior and would decide to commit to Florida over pretty much every other school in the nation. He also blew up from a 4 to a 5, and after Graham Mertz got hurt, Lagway would have to start the rest of the 2024 season, and he didn't seem very ready, to be honest. He finished the year with 1,900 yards and 12 touchdowns, and after battling some sort of mysterious injury this offseason, he's thrown for just under 2,000 yards and 12 touchdowns with 13 interceptions. Honestly, DJ Lagway seems to be a turnover machine, but he just needs a fresh start. I don't think Florida is the place for him, and he should go somewhere that can salvage his career and actually get the most out of his talent. Florida has a new staff, so maybe he'll stay around, but I think Lagway needs to transfer and find a better opportunity, and a coach that can get his confidence back. We somehow have just 6 quarterbacks left to talk about, and the first one is Devin Farrell. Coming out of Milton High School in the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, Farrell was listed as the number 48 quarterback and the 826th best player in the class of 2022. Farrell would throw for 2,000 yards and 24 touchdowns and was also a great dual threat, and that's why he ended up getting an offer to play for Virginia Tech. Unfortunately, things would not work out for him in Blacksburg, and he would decide to transfer to Rhode Island. He has been a starter for the Rams the last 2 years now and has thrown for 4,600 yards and 32 touchdowns. He's also rushed for 7 scores. He does struggle with turnovers a little bit, but Farrell is definitely good enough to get back up to the FBS level and is one of those FCS quarterback gems that you will definitely want to know about and take note of. Up next, let's talk about CJ Bailey, the starting quarterback for NC State. Somehow, I have not mentioned CJ Bailey much on the channel, but coming out of Chaminade High School in Hollywood, Florida, Bailey blew up into one of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2024, as he was a 4-star and the number 29 overall quarterback in the nation. He ended up passing for 3,200 yards and 47 touchdowns as a senior and 116 touchdowns during his career. Bailey would take over the back half of the 2024 season, throwing for 2,400 yards and 17 scores. So far in 2025 as the starter, Bailey has thrown for 2,500 yards and 19 touchdowns and also has 5 rushing scores. He's a good athlete and a good quarterback who I feel like his talent is being wasted at NC State. He could definitely go somewhere where he can shine brighter, and that's why I think Bailey should enter the portal and go to a bigger and better option with a better staff and better receivers. To me, one of the most fascinating players in the class of 2025 was Adoree' Newkirk. Coming out of Maury High School in Virginia, Newkirk was insane his last 2 years of high school football, which is why he was bumped from a no-name to a 4-star. He threw for 3,800 yards and 50 touchdowns as a senior, and his team would go undefeated. He went from a 0-star recruit to a 4-star recruit in the class of 2025 and signed with Bill Belichick at North Carolina. He's also alongside Bryce Baker, and so far this year, Newkirk has thrown one pass and it was an interception. I think Baker is probably the freshman option of the future for UNC, and honestly the Tar Heels are a complete mess, but Newkirk should probably get out of Dodge and transfer to another school. I could see one of the schools like Maryland or Rutgers taking him, and while he still has stock, he should take it. We've got 3 more quarterbacks to talk about, and the first one is Isaac Wilson. If that name sounds familiar, he is the younger brother of former BYU star Zach Wilson. He put up similar numbers to his older brother, as coming out of Corner Canyon High School in Utah, he ended up throwing for 3,700 yards and 40 touchdowns. Because of this, Wilson was considered a 4-star recruit and the number 18 quarterback in the nation, and would arrive at Utah in 2024. After the whole Cam Rising debacle, he would actually get a chance to play, throwing for 1,500 yards with 10 touchdowns and 11 picks. He wasn't great as a freshman, and after originally deciding to enter the portal, he came back. Unfortunately, he is now 3rd on the depth chart, as he's just thrown 1 pass this year. I think the writing is currently on the wall for Isaac Wilson, and he should consider going to another school. He could definitely go be a star at a place like Utah State, and I want him to succeed. For quarterback number 24, let's talk about Dylan Lonergan. He is currently the starter at Boston College, but going back in time, he went to Brookwood High School in Georgia and was a late riser in the class of 2023. In fact, he was listed as the number 12 quarterback in the nation and would decide to commit to Alabama. This came after throwing for 3,400 yards and 39 touchdowns his senior season, and he came in alongside Eli Holstein. Neither of them would really get a chance to do much at Bama, and Lonergan finally transferred after the 2024 season and was named the starter this year. Sadly, Boston College has been horrible, but Lonergan has thrown for 2,000 yards with 12 touchdowns and 5 picks. I guess honestly, after taking a look at this situation, maybe Dylan shouldn't transfer. Maybe he should actually stay at the Power 4 level and continue to be the starter there, but if he wants to win more games or potentially do better, he would need to transfer down to the Group of 4 level. I don't think he's talented enough to transfer up, but at the same time, Boston College is a mess. And finally, after one of the longest videos I've done on the channel in a while, we get to number 25, and that is Micah Alejado. He ended up going to the infamous Bishop Gorman High School, but despite putting up good numbers there, scouts didn't really take notice. He'd end up throwing for 9,233 yards and 125 touchdowns during his career, but with him being left-handed and undersized, his best offer was Hawaii, and the number 92 quarterback in the nation would end up playing for the Rainbow Warriors. Alejado would play a bit last year, throwing for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, but as the starter for Timmy Chang in 2025, he has thrown for 2,400 yards with 18 touchdowns. I absolutely love the way the guy slings the ball, and he's a lot of fun to watch. And Hawaii's enjoyed a breakout season. He put up ridiculous numbers in high school, has proven to be a really good player, and I think could definitely get up to the low-tier Power 4 level. Again, he's undersized, but he wins games and makes plays, and that's what matters the most. But yeah, today I talked about 25 quarterbacks who I think could enter the 2025 transfer portal, and what do you think? Who's your favorite player on this list? Who would you add to part 2? And what other topic should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.